room was cold, unnaturally so. A faint breeze seemed to sweep through the walls, but there were no open windows, no gaps for the air to pass. Yet something lingered in the air, an unseen presence, watching, waiting. Daniel Richards had been dead for 2 years now, but death hadn't brought him peace. At 25, his life had been tragically cut short in a freak accident. He never saw it coming. A truck skidding on a rainy road, crushing his car with brutal finality. In an instant, his human life was over, but something dark had awoken in him. In the afterlife, he wasn't just a lost soul. He had become something more, a shadow of his former self, now a ghost bound by strange new urges he never had when he was alive. At first, he wandered aimlessly, unsure of what had happened to him, trying to comprehend his new existence. He couldn't speak to anyone, couldn't make himself seen, but he could feel the darkness growing inside him. And then, he found her, his first. A young woman alone in her apartment, peacefully asleep. As he hovered near her, something stirred within him. He didn't just want to haunt her, he wanted something more. It wasn't desire, not exactly. It was a strange, irresistible pull, like his very essence was being drawn toward her. When he came closer, when he reached for her, a jolt of energy surged through him, invigorating his ghostly form. He had never felt so alive, even in death.
Each night, Daniel sought out women who lived alone, finding his way into their homes under the cover of darkness. With each encounter, he grew stronger, more powerful. His ability to manipulate the physical world sharpened. At first, he simply teased. Small, harmless things, flickering lights, creaking floors, whispers in the night. But soon, it became something more sinister. He thrived on their fear. The more terrified they became, the more pleasure he derived from their panic. It was as if their dread was feeding his newfound power, making him unstoppable. But something was changing within Daniel. His visits were no longer random. He began targeting certain women, those who seemed to hold a darker energy within them. There was a pattern he couldn't quite understand, but he followed it, compelled by a force that both terrified and excited him. Each encounter left him wanting more, needing more. As Daniel's power grew, so did the intensity of his hauntings. He no longer lingered in the shadows. Now, he moved things, slamming doors, shattering glass, pulling the sheets off his victims in the dead of night. He reveled in their terror, feeling more alive than he had ever been. But with each act of cruelty, there was a voice, a whisper in the back of his mind, reminding him of something he had forgotten. One night, Daniel met a woman unlike any other. She lived alone, as they all did, but there was something about her that drew him in. Her energy was different, stronger, darker, as if she too harbored secrets. When he approached her, ready to feed off her fear, something unexpected happened. She wasn't afraid. Instead, she smiled. "I've been waiting for you." Daniel's spectral form wavered. How could she see him? No one had been able to do that before. She stood, walking toward him as if she had known him all along. Her eyes gleamed with a cold, knowing light. "I know what you are," she whispered, her voice like ice. Daniel tried to back away, but he found himself unable to move. The woman raised her hand, and a dark mist seemed to surround her, pulling Daniel toward her. "You think you're in control?" She laughed softly. "You're not the hunter here, Daniel. You're the prey."
The story unraveled as Daniel's supernatural journey spiraled deeper into the unknown. Every encounter with this mysterious woman revealed more about the truth behind his haunting desires. He wasn't becoming stronger because of his own power. He was being manipulated by something ancient, something that had been waiting for him long before his death. The more he delved into this mystery, the more he realized that he wasn't just a ghost haunting women. He was being used as a vessel for a dark, sinister force that fed on the energy he siphoned from his victims. And the woman who had found him was not just another victim. She was the key to everything. As the suspense built, Daniel uncovered the horrifying truth about his own death. It hadn't been an accident. Someone had orchestrated it, planning his demise so that he could become this ghostly force. The more he unraveled the layers of deceit, the more he realized that he had been part of a supernatural ritual designed to empower this ancient entity. Everything came crashing down. The woman revealed her true identity. A powerful witch who had been working in the shadows for centuries, feeding off the energy of spirits like Daniel to fuel her immortality. And now, she had chosen him to complete the ritual, a ritual that would make her unstoppable. But Daniel, realizing that he had been a pawn in her twisted game, fought back. Using the very power she had given him, he turned the tables, trapping her in the spirit world, leaving her powerless and doomed to haunt the very place she had tormented for so long. In the end, Daniel realized that true power didn't come from haunting the living. It came from breaking free of the chains that bound him to the darkness. And as he faded into the afterlife, he finally found the peace he had been searching for all along. 10 years had passed, and the world had long forgotten the terror of Daniel Richards. The witch's defeat had brought a fragile calm, one that the women he once haunted believed would last forever. But peace was fleeting, and darkness never truly vanished. It only waited for the right moment to rise again. One cold, moonless night, in the same city Daniel once haunted, a new wave of fear began to ripple through the air. Strange occurrences returned, flickering lights, whispers in the wind, and shadows lurking in the corners of rooms. The signs were all there. Daniel had come back. But this time, he wasn't the same restless spirit he once was. He had been lying in wait, trapped in the in-between, growing in power. The energy he once drained from women now surged through him like a storm. He had transcended the limits of the spirit world, and the darkness that had once manipulated him was now a part of him, feeding his desire for control. Daniel had returned, more powerful, more dangerous, and hungrier than ever. The first woman he targeted was unaware of the looming danger. She had lived alone for years, comfortable in her routine, thinking the tales of a ghost haunting the city were just old myths. But as Daniel approached her, the familiar pull of power washed over him. With each step closer to her, he felt the energy swelling inside him. This time, it wasn't just fear he thrived on. It was something darker, more intimate. Every touch, every whisper he pressed into the shadows of her bedroom made him stronger. His control over her fear turned into a consuming force, transforming him into something no longer bound by the same rules as before. The more terrified she became, the more he enjoyed it. The more he interacted with her, the more unstoppable he grew. The witch had sensed his return before anyone else. Though trapped in the spirit world, she had not been idle. She had spent years trying to rebuild her power, waiting for the moment she could challenge him again. But as she attempted to confront Daniel, she realized something had changed. Every time she tried to stop him, every time she tried to weaken him, it was as if her own energy was being drained.
Each time the witch struck at Daniel, he absorbed her power like a sponge. The more she fought, the more he laughed, a cruel mocking sound that echoed through the night. He reveled in her desperation, in the realization that she was no longer the predator, but the prey. "You can't stop me this time," Daniel hissed, his voice a mixture of rage and triumph. "You made me what I am, and now you will watch as I take everything." His encounters with women became more intense, more deliberate. Each time he haunted a woman, the energy he drained wasn't just fear, it was life itself. The intimacy he sought wasn't physical, but a twisted form of possession. The more he interacted with them, the more he became a part of their souls, draining their very essence to fuel his growing power. The witch, now desperate, tried every spell, every incantation she knew, but Daniel was beyond her reach. His strength grew with each woman he haunted, and with each failed attempt to stop him, the suspense mounted. The witch could feel the balance of power shifting, and with every moment that passed, Daniel seemed less like the ghost she had once controlled, and more like an unstoppable force. But she wasn't ready to give up. Somewhere, deep within the ancient texts she had studied for centuries, there had to be a way, a weakness, a secret that could undo him. She just had to find it, before it was too late.
As Daniel's power reached unimaginable heights, he began to see the world differently. He wasn't just a ghost. He was becoming something more, something darker, something the world had never seen before. And with each new victim, his hunger for power grew. He no longer just wanted to haunt women. He wanted to control them completely, bending them to his will and absorbing every drop of life they had to offer. The witch knew that time was running out, but what she didn't realize was that Daniel's power had surpassed anything she could have imagined. He was no longer just a spirit feeding on fear. He had become an entity fueled by the very essence of life, the energy that flowed through every living being. And the more she tried to stop him, the more he relished in her failures, knowing that the final confrontation was coming. But this time, it wouldn't be like before. This time, Daniel wasn't just fighting for control over a few haunted souls. He was fighting to reshape the world of the living and the dead.